You did it. Thank you, sir.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the North Leeds Jits podcast. Today, as usual, we're joined by Professor Mike, and we're also joined by Adisa the Bishop,
What's up, guys?
who's a brown belt at Heroes
Heroes Martial Arts in
Arts,
San Jose, yeah.
San Jose, and visiting from
Yeah, visiting from the
America.
San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. This is an amazing facility. Amazing. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
man.
Thanks for being here, man. You know, we ran into Adisa the other day when he came in and saw us. So thank you so much for popping in.
Nice surprise. Just turned up,
Yeah.
looking for some jits.
Yeah, I was just jogging. I was like, you know what I mean?
This is the beautiful thing. This is what I'm excited to talk to Adisa about today. Like, you know, how, because we've spoke to our members a lot about like how broad jiu-jitsu is, and the jiu-jitsu family extends out. No matter what team, no matter where you are, if you find someone who does jiu-jitsu, you've got a friend. And like literally last week, showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was just like, because I was like, I gotta try the door. It opened. I was like, oh, you know. So I was really happy to find you guys up here, and you know, Stefan Zoll, who's
We know Stefan, I know Stefan.
from Leeds, you know what I'm saying, and teaches in Saudi. You know, shout out to Black Lab and everybody over there in Saudi. You know, when I got back, I was like, hey, I went and Mike was in there. He was like, oh, that's wicked. I was like, yeah. So that was great. You know?
So yeah, you can share us. There's some jiu-jitsu stories and your journey, and philosophies and stuff, and also the secrets to eternal youth, because you're obviously hiding it.
Well, let's just say what happened last
as well,
week. So it was embarrassing. So Adisa comes in, he's got his mask on, he's done his hand sanitization. We thank him for that. We did a fist bump, and I'm like, and he says, oh, I wish I had 30-year-old knees. I said, mate, wait till you get to my age, like 40.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at him, and he's like, man, I'm 51. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's true. I am 51. I'm grateful for the outer, you know, it's genetic, but it's also, if I'm being honest, it's a mix of like, when I was young, I drank and smoked really heavy, but really young, like 16, 17. You know what I mean? And so I stopped early, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
Right.
Because the smoking and drinking is something that catches up with you in little bits, and you don't really realize it. You know what I mean? But then all of a sudden, your whole skin looks leathery, or all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like you come off worn out. You can tell like the energy is not in you. So you know, I think that jiu-jitsu, right, keeping me healthy has been like probably one of the best decisions of all decisions I've made in my life. Like doing jiu-jitsu is one of the best things I ever did.
Well, you started super early. Like, we're going to go, are we?
I'm old. Internally, you're looking at Uguay. You know what I'm saying? Like outwardly, I might look all footloose and fancy free. Like, you know, that's just the lighting.
Where are we starting to? Because this guy started like when
a weird journey.
he came last week, and we was like mentioning these names. I'm like, man, I remember those names like way back, like way back. So
Yeah.
Dave Camarillo and BJ Penn starting all that.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start this team?
I would actually like to start before maybe when we get into the jiu-jitsu stuff is like where you grew up and what life was like back there. Like what was life growing up for you?
Sure. So I was born in San Francisco. My parents were from the South, but they met in the Bay Area. My father was he ran a mechanics shop at United Airlines, and then my mom was a legal secretary who became like a mutual funds trader. And so I grew up, you know, upper middle, you know, kind of vibe. And so I grew up in a mainly, like, to say it was segregated is not accurate, but there weren't many black families, you know what I mean? Like where I was. And so I would get into fights and stuff. And then my dad took me to the YMCA judo program. So I started doing judo, and that was pretty cool. I wasn't that good at it, but I stuck with it when I was young for a little bit. And then
How old were you then?
probably like 9, 10 years old, you know, started doing judo, and it worked for me, you know what I mean? Like,
Why did your dad bring you down? Were you kind of like, you would get into his fights and stuff?
yeah, I was getting into too many fights, and I was small for my age. I was very small.
All right, not now.
I was very small. I was like a late bloomer on the size thing. Like when I graduated high school, I weighed 100 pounds.
No way.
And how old is that
That's small.
when you graduated?
18 years old.
Oh, right.
100 pounds. I was small.
And how tall were you, though?
About this height?
What?
So like, I look ridiculous.
Thin.
I was so small. I remember I asked this girl to a dance and she was like, but what about the cancer? I said, what are you talking about? She was like, I heard you had cancer. And I was like, of all the rumors that can go around, I was like, I don't have cancer, man. You know what I'm saying? She still said no. But the point is that I was a small human being. So my dad had me in judo. I let that go for a bit. And then around that time, my dad actually that was when so old. This is how you know I'm old. I existed before VCRs.
Wow. Betamax.
Yeah. So the first VHS tapes my dad brought home was Alien and Return of the Dragon. I had never seen Bruce Lee before. So that totally changed my life, right? So now I'm watching that, you know what I'm saying? And then
And in the Bay Area, right? Bruce Lee's
exactly,
really
because
big.
Bruce Lee's,
Yeah.
just the culture of Chinatown, the culture of Chinatown in San Francisco and Oakland, the impact of Bruce Lee, being from Oakland, and living so much of his life there in San Francisco, like it totally kind of overtook my life. And this is when in the late 70s, early 80s, where they don't have these places anymore, but they used to have like shops that you could go to. You could buy butterfly knives, throwing stars. Like, dude, I had a paper route. Me and my boys, we all went to this one spot. I got like 2 throwing stars. He got We're kids, bro. We're like, can I get that throwing star? $5.
You gonna be safe with it?
Yeah. I was like, I could have took somebody's eye out. Could have you know what I'm saying? So that kind of stuff was always in me. So, but I didn't really stick with judo. So then fast forward to about 1990. I started doing Filipino stick fighting, but I was horrible at it. I did not have it. And my teacher was great, but like I didn't have it. So one of the guys that I was learning Eskrima with, his name was Jamie. And he was like, hey man, have you ever heard of these dudes called the Gracies? And I was like, nah. He goes, look, I just bought this out of a Kung Fu mag, but look at their tape. It was Gracie in Action 1.
Right.
And I was like, nah, you can just tackle somebody and get on top of them and they lose a fight? I was like, I can tackle somebody. So he was like, well, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know if it works. He was like, you don't think it works? And I was like, nah. And we both
I reckon there must have been a lot of people wondering back then, like,
it just didn't seem. I was like, come on, man, all these dudes, because I was like, did they all take payoffs? They must be rich. I was like trying to figure out like how. So then like, he's like, all right, so you do Eskrima and I'm going to try to just like bum rush you and see what's up. I was like, all right, cool. Boom, just tackle me. He's on top. He's like, all right, get off me. So then I was like, all right, we're going to get one more time. So then like 2 or 3 times, like he does that. So he bought the VHS tapes, the early Torrance tapes,
right,
from Horian, and I started training with him. So then like, I was...
What was on the tapes? Was it like instructionals of moves, or was it just...
it was Horian showing, so it was the first like, what is the mount? You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
How does it work? Escaping a headlock.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And it was him and Hoist in the gi. But even at that point, Hoist was not known in the UFC. This is pre-UFC, right?
Pre-93.
So this is just, this is them just trying to sell what they know, So I worked at a grocery store at the time and we had security. And then so one night I was like, hey, do you guys know how to fight? And they was like, yeah. I was like, no, seriously, like, can you actually fight? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I've been doing this jiu-jitsu stuff. I want to see if it works. Can we what's up in the back? I mean, this is stupid, but I was like, all right, whatever. So they were like, what's up? So we went to the back. I mashed them. All of them.
Really?
And I was like...
What, just like dominated them?
Yeah,
like
I got them and I was like, like I would get the mount super quick. I would get the clinch, trip them, get the mount, and we were on cement. And so I kind of had a reputation.
Seeing why the knees might be bad now.
Yeah, understand, right? So then I was like, like I wasn't beating the teeth out of them or whatever, but I was allowing them. I was like, while we're standing, you can punch me. Like if you catch me, you catch me. But I was understanding how the clinch was working and I wasn't taking any damage.
So this is like Gracie challenge matches.
It was exactly that,
in the back of the
right?
grocery store.
So then what happens is there was a guy who did judo there. Now, if you don't know the San Francisco Bay Area, we are known for judo, been known for judo. Willie Cahill is one of the Olympic judo coaches. He's from San Bruno. That's like literally 5 minutes from where I was raised. Shout out to Willie Cahill and everybody over there. What's up, Mike? You know what I'm saying? Pierre, everybody. AK. And then in San Jose, at San Jose State, there's a massive judo program, like one of the best in the world. And there's the San Jose Buddhist Center. They do kids training. I mean, all adults and everything, but like their kids team is always like ridiculous. So he went to San Jose State judo. And then he was like, you can't beat me though. I was like, have a seat. I'm actually devastating. And he was like, no, seriously, like I'll get you. So we set up a match. Somebody knew somebody that owned a school. I went to the school and he choked me out twice.
The judo guy.
Yeah. And I was like, what happened? So it was an Ezekiel.
Okay.
It was an Ezekiel trick.
From the mount or?
From the mount.
Okay.
And I called my boy who gave me the tapes and I was like, yo, man, I just got housed. And he was like, for real, what happened? I was like, I've never seen this choke before. It was like his forearm. I was trying to explain it. He was like, well, you're in luck. I just found out that Ralph Gracie is opening up a school near you. And I was like, who's that? Now that fast forward some time. So then the UFC comes, Royce Gracie starts kicking everybody's ass, but it's still rather unknown. So at that time, that's when I do the challenge matches, Jamie's like, Ralph Gracie's near your area. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I went and...
Did Ralph have a reputation then? Because he's got one now. Like he's tough, right? Like compared to all the Gracies, like he's a hard dude. Like
He's
looks nasty.
Yo, he doesn't play.
Yeah, Henzo always talks about him in like he's a wild kind of.
Yeah,
he's a wild.
You know what it
Gracies,
is, man? You know what it is? It's like some people, you know, look, jiu-jitsu is a thing that it's a, you know, it's a civilizing tool. You know what I'm saying? But you get civilized through getting put through the meat grinder so much that it stops affecting you. You know what I'm saying? And so Ralph is a guy who's brilliant, who's funny, but when it's time to train, he's not playing games. I mean, that's what it is. But I used to think that he was like mean, you know what I'm saying? Or that like he kind of like didn't care in a stereotypical like sensei says whatever.
Right.
But it wasn't until a couple of years in that I realized that he actually loves you so much that he's afraid of not transmitting it to you right and you losing.
Wow, okay.
And he never, and that's really what it is.
And that's
You
it's
know
kind of
what
what Professor Piano was saying on the podcast we did last week. Like,
Yeah.
he's going hard with his students because he wants them to be
better
the
than
best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we believe that. I think every good professor wants that. Like, that's the natural evolution of what we're doing. Like,
Yeah.
if my students don't end up beating me, like I ended up beating Tom, you know, Tom won't mind me saying that, like
Right.
his students did, like my first instructor. I don't think I'll ever beat Victor, but like he's a different thing. But like, if my students aren't beating me, something's gone wrong. I've
Yeah.
held something back that I should have given them.
And
because
that's
I've been
no
giving them
good.
everything. That's no good.
You know what I mean? So when Ralph, you know, so first class I get there, Bobby Southworth, who was on the first Ultimate Fighter, and Dave Camarillo were there. Actually, now that I rethink it, I think they were both still white belts about to be blue. I think that they got their blues like literally like a month or two after I got in. You know, Gumby, you know, my instructor now was there. Scotty from On the Mat, you know what I'm saying?
All these guys, by the way, for the members who are listening to this, like when I started training jiu-jitsu in 2002, these were legends like Dave Camarillo.
Yeah.
Like, I used to watch his stuff and I was
Yeah.
like in awe with this guy, like amazing jiu-jitsu. And you're talking about them being like white and blue belts, like this is exciting to hear. So a
Yeah.
lot of our members won't have heard of these guys, but these are like the OGs of
Yeah,
like,
these
jiu-jitsu.
guys, yeah. If you put in Dave Camarillo, if you put in like Gumby Marcus, Marquez, you know, Scotty Nelson, like Ralph Gracie, you know what I'm saying? Like you'll see a lot. BJ Penn, you know what I'm saying? Like we were all there on the same time. So, you know, when I got there the first time, you know, and you know, I'm still a rather small dude. And I go in, when I first called, Bobby answered. So Ralph wasn't there. He was like, you know, you can come by and try a class, whatever. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went over there. I live in San Jose. Mountain View's very close. I go in, cool school, all right, whatever. I already know what jiu-jitsu is because I already seen the tapes, so, you know, whatever. Bro, the beating I took that day was so insane. And they weren't punching and kicking me. Like, it was just jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying? And my level of unfitness. You know what I mean? Like, I have to be honest. Like, I was a really skinny dude. I wasn't working out. You know what I mean? And
Well, you weren't rolling fit, and rolling fit's a different thing, right?
hey,
A lot of our members have experienced this in the last week. Like, you know, stood up at the end of class, I'm saying, you've only grappled for 4 minutes. Black belt match is 10.
Come
a
on.
fight can last forever.
Come
like,
on.
4 minutes.
come on.
What, mate, that first class, can you remember it? Like, what happened? Did you get taught some techniques or?
So the
What
first thing is Bobby showing me the mount. Dave was working with more of the other advanced students because I was like first day guy. He was like, all right, you know, blah, blah, here's the mount, UPA, you know what I'm saying? Here's the guard. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, I get it. And then we did some like sparring stuff. And it wasn't just like him and Dave. It was all of us, you know, that were brand new. You know what I mean? And I remember just going home and it was a good class. Half wasn't there that day. But I decided I was going to do it. Like, I was like, okay, this is something I want to know forever. This is cool. But I went home, took a shower, and I was so sore. I was waking up in my sleep from moving. You know, and I'm like, oh. And I remember laying there and I was looking at the ceiling and I was like, dude, this hurts. Are you going back? And I was like, go back. And if it hurts like this again, you'll quit. But if it feels any less, you'll stay. So I went to the next class and Half was there. It was essentially the same class, obviously. You know what I'm saying? I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. So then, you know, and I was less sore. So I stayed with it. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy. But those times were intense. You know what I'm saying? People still didn't believe in jiu-jitsu. So, you know.
This is 94, 5?
Nah, this would have been like 97, 98.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like people would still come in and be like, oh, jiu-jitsu, huh? And stuff like that. So like it was me. There was a guy, like his name is Cameron. He's not doing jiu-jitsu anymore. But at the time, like when he was under Half, like Cameron tapped out Marcelo Garcia.
Wow, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
my favorite grappler.
murderous type. You know what I'm saying?
We've all met those guys, right? And it's funny because some of them drop off the map.
Yeah.
Oh, some of them just stay within the gym. They don't compete. They just
They just
murderers.
become murderers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cam ended up being an actual psychopath who's in jail right now. So he's
Okay.
we going.
A literal murderer.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, Cam's out. So me and Cam used to take the bus sometimes on the weekends to practice. So I remember there was this dude from San Jose State, black dude, who was like, you know, I don't care about the Gracies, blah, blah. So then he wanted to go with Dave. So they was like, I'm gonna come by there on Saturday. So me and Cam got on the bus and I was like, bro, have you seen this dude before? He's hella big. He's like, yeah, he's like 6'4", hella yo. Well, I was like, oh, this is gonna be crazy. I said, is Half gonna be there? Like, oh, I think so, you know, blah, blah, blah. So
everyone was expecting this kind of challenge.
so we're
match
waiting for
Wow.
So I brought a camera. So then like my ex-wife now was like, come back. I was like, you're killing me. There's a fight happening, man. She was like, you gotta come back. So like I'm sitting there waiting and like Cam's like, what are you gonna do? I was like, dude, like I'm trying to get a picture of this fight. Like this is gonna be historic. And then he's like, don't leave, bro, don't leave. So I'm hanging. A couple buses go by. I'm hanging. I'm like, dude, I gotta bail. He's like, don't leave. Dude, as soon as I left, he pulled in.
No way.
As soon. Cameron called me. He's like, dude. I was like, what happened? He said, Brewster came in there. He was like, what's up? I want to go with you. He was talking to Half. He said that...
Just because he didn't believe in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because there were still those guys back then, right? Who were like,
they didn't believe
this
in
is
work.
phony stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we want to figure it out.
Yeah, just how we were talking about when we saw the videotape.
It's got to be beatable. There's got to be something that can do this.
There's something missing. So apparently him and Dave got on the mat, started going at it, and Dave immediately went for a trademark armbar, which he's known for.
Yep.
I think he has a DVD called Armbar Annihilation on Jiu-Jitsu. He gets Brewster in an arm lock, and Brewster picks him up, and he starts to walk off the mat, and he's gonna slam Dave, right? And Half locks the door. He's like, "Don't do that." He's like, "Don't do that."
Yes.
And so he goes to lift Dave, and Dave like hipped out and just broke his whole arm. And then they said he fell, and then Dave started yelling at him, and then he grabbed his arm and bounced. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
Now
that
he
happens
believes in
periodically.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
He's got it now.
yeah. And you know what's cool though about martial arts? They became cool over time. It's my understanding that they squashed beef over time. And I think that this is part of what happens, in the process of these kinds of martial
Well, I
arts.
think it goes one or two ways. It's above our door there, no egos, right? Like I've certainly been on the mat with people who've turned up and had this kind of expectation that either they were doormen or they were rugby players or they're just massive. I'm going to be fine because I'll be fine with even the head instructor, right? They get messed up by like a blue belt girl who's been female who's been training for a year.
just clock choked them into
it's
infinity or something. Yeah.
And they go one or two ways. Either their ego can't handle it, they never come back.
Right.
Never see them, hear of them,
Yeah,
they're gone,
they're
they're
just
gone.
gone.
Or they're like, I need to learn this. And we've all had that light bulb moment where we've been smashed by someone that we thought we would be okay with,
You're just
and
not.
with jiu-jitsu, and we're just not. And then it's like, I've got to know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Big time.
So house training was very hard. I was never one of the best guys. I was just someone who was there. I was in the meat grinder. I remember when Kurt showed up, he was a purple belt. He had just got back from Kurt Osiander.
Yep.
He had just gotten back from Brazil. He had been in Brazil for some time. So then Kurt Osiander, Sapone, came through, I think, with Kurt at the same time. And it was a crazy time. So, like I said, BJ Penn was there. I remember kind of observing BJ Penn's one of his first training sessions. He was there with Tom Carlos. Tom is oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Who's the tall dude, does the worm guard? Why am I tripping out right now?
Keenan.
Keenan Cornelius' stepfather.
Yeah.
Tom Carlos. So
Hawaii, right?
Yeah, so he brought BJ out, and BJ was learning the stack pass from Dave. And I remember he was stacking BJ super hard. And he was like, "Are you okay?" Because he's checking on him to make sure he's cool. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "Ugh." And I know that. I mean, Dave's stack pass is murder. And he was like, "Oh, you're hella flexible." And I couldn't really understand BJ's accent. So I thought he was from India. I thought he was like a yoga type. You know what I mean?
He's got those crazy flexible legs.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then BJ and his brothers all moved out 2 months later, BJ, Reagan, JD, you know what I'm saying? And they lived not too far from me, a mile away from where I live. So.
Was BJ the first American to win in Brazil, in the Mundials, I think?
He was. But that was a crazy situation because when he did that, he had just left house. And that's when a lot of the crayon stuff was still popping.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember him winning. It was because that was when the Mundials was still in the tennis club out in Rio. And he went out there and beat all the Brazilians.
Soka was there. He beat Soka.
And
that
was
Soka was the dude. You know what I mean? And there were many dudes on the things. But so I was lucky. I was around BJ. I was around JD. I was around a lot of those dudes. And then after my son was born, I moved from San Francisco. Well, I was a little more north. So anyway, I was closer to Charles Gracie. So then I was still a white belt. Went over to Charles's. Started training with Charles. What's up, Charles? You know what I'm saying? What's up, Half? You know what I'm saying? And Oliver Himes. You know what I'm saying? The whole crew. And that too was crazy. The difference though in learning styles was Charles is a little bit taller than Half, so he tended to play an open guard.
Right.
Whereas Half had a very classic tight closed guard, high attacking game, and it was very aggressive. Charles was a little bit more playful, and he didn't fight. I would never open my closed guard.
No.
You know what I mean?
Has to be open for you, right?
Right. And so Charles was like, "Who cares? Just open the guard, get your grips," and he would just start hitting crazy sweeps and stuff like that. So there was still crazy stuff that happened though. One day Charles wasn't there on a Friday night. And Friday nights tended to be slow. And this dude comes in from Nova União, and he's only speaking Portuguese. And he's talking to this other dude. And he's like, da 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 da. And now, tragically, I had only been watching Nova União highlight reels. So, like
They're another team for the
yeah,
guys
for
who are
like
listening.
for like the previous month and a half, I was watching bootleg Nova União. He wants to go with people, and he's not playing.
Right.
And he's a purple belt, and I'm blue, and so he goes with another blue belt who's heavier than me. He catches this dude. This isn't a straight dojo storm. Dojo storming is when someone from other schools would come to your school and it would be on. This was not that, but he was kind of trying to see what was up. You
Doesn't
know what I'm
happen
saying?
much anymore, to be
Yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
back
It
in the
doesn't. It's
day,
an old
kinda
school.
did,
It's an
but
old school thing. So then they're like, "What's up, Deesh? You got to go with this dude." So I'm like, "All right." But my head is stuck in the Nova União highlight reel footage. So I'm scared, right? Like I'm not like, "What's up?" Like normally I would be that way. But I'm studying Nova União techniques to try and, get better. So I'm very hesitant, you know what I mean,
Cautious.
in the match. And while I'm fighting, no time limit, for the record, no time limit.
Submission only?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're just going. And he's getting the best of me positionally. And I think it was Peter got on the phone and he called Sanzio, who was a purple belt. While we're fighting, the dude catches me. He takes my arm, my left arm. And I wasn't even like hurt. I was pissed at myself.
Right. Because you didn't feel you'd given a good account of
I
yourself?
should have. I knew I could beat this dude. He wasn't housing me.
Right.
I was just, hesitant. So long story short, he catches my arm. And when I sit up off the mat, Sanzio's on the edge of the mat and he's holding his gi. And he says something to the dude in Portuguese. And the dude says something back and he goes, "I'm going to go put my gi on." And I looked at that dude and I was like, "You're about to get it, bro." You know what I'm saying? I went and I sat down. Man, Sanzio put a clinic on that man. It was crazy. Sanzio. So anyway, it was just a different era of
It's great to hear though, because we spoke a little bit about in recent kind of podcasts about how jiu-jitsu's kind of exploded now, right? And it's accessible. It's on every street corner, kind of theoretically. It's close to people.
Yeah.
Back even when I started, early 2000s, it was still fairly underground. You had to travel a long way to get information.
Yeah.
It was kind of a secret club. It was you spoke about it. It's like Fight Club, the first
Yeah.
rule. You don't speak about it. It's our thing. And sometimes I think it's great that everyone's got it now because we want to share it.
Yeah.
But those experiences are never going to happen again. That's not
No.
going to happen.
No.
I would never let that happen here. No one's turning up in this academy and start calling my students out. But back then it was it happened.
Yo, it happened, man. It happened, and it was crazy, some of the stuff that.
What do you think? Do you think jiu-jitsu's better for it being kind of more mainstream, or do you think it's better back
I think it was just a necessary part of the evolution. It was a necessary part of the evolution. And this is why, getting back to Hauf, right? Look, man, I feel like Hauf made me a better, tougher man and human being. He made me way healthy. Same with Charles. Then I took why am I still a brown belt? Because I came in and I left. I would come and I left. So the lesson of all these stories, kids, is keep training.
How long have you
That's the
trained now?
moral
I've been training for 30 years.
Yeah, I'm in and out. You know what I mean? Because I blue belt, out for 3 years. Purple belt, out for 5 years.
But you kept coming back.
Yeah, but I keep coming back.
Why?
I can't leave it.
Why?
Because it does keep me healthy and looking footloose and fancy free. Because I meet amazing people like you, legitimately, right? My instructor Gumby, we met as white belts at House. You know what I'm saying? Scotty, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Scotty and
it's under your skin, isn't it? When jiu-jitsu gets under there somewhere and it's within you, there's nothing I've found, I'm yet to find anything that quite replaces it across the whole level. We speak sometimes, don't we, about, because we're both ex-military, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar camaraderie, similar adverse kind of training, and you get
I'm sure.
through
I'm
it.
not from the military, but I believe that is.
When they say you stay in touch with your friend, if I met some guys I served in the Marines with, literally we would be best friends again like that. And that's what jiu-jitsu is like.
No, it is, man. You don't see people for you're like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? Because all of that rolling, it betters you. It makes you face your fears. It makes you admit your weaknesses. People who don't have the same religion as you, the same skin color, the same culture, they're helping you protect your life and the lives of those that you love. And in that, you're finding not just your own humanity, but humanity in other people, right? And so that is something that you can't get from a book, right? Like, like he can show you how to do a triangle choke, right? He can teach you how to do an ankle pick, right? But until you have to do that yourself, right? And you try it and you fail, or you try it and you get it right, and then you get the triangle. Like what it takes emotionally and mentally for you to do that it's a priceless thing. And so that's what I keep returning to.
There's a trust as well, an implied trust too, right? That strangers will let go when you tap. Like, where else do we put ourselves in like a strangle where if they didn't let go, it could be fatal? And we hope they stop.
Right,
like,
exactly.
We've never met each other before. I kind of hope when I do tap, you will stop.
Yeah.
And there's this implied trust across the whole community.
No, absolutely.
And that's amazing, isn't it? Because we're kind of a little bit hesitant of other people usually. We're a bit guarded. We meet someone for the first time, don't know them, never met them.
Right.
And we're like, not quite sure yet. Well, let's just see how this goes. In jiu-jitsu, it's like we meet for the first time.
It's on. Right. No, totally.
Trust you 100% right now, no matter what.
Well, that's because like by being on Virtue of the Mat, we've agreed to this set of parameters that even though we don't know each other, we've already agreed to letting go when someone taps, et cetera. And that I'm actually going to try to strangle you. And you're actually going to try to strangle me. And we're both cool with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I think that, back to your question about jiu-jitsu and where it's at and everything, I think it was a necessary, evolution in the process, because how would we know that it was more effective as a martial art than a lot of other arts? How would we know how well it would blend with American wrestling and UK judo and stuff like that if these kinds of matches didn't happen? But I think on the other part of it is that like, because it's easy for a lot of people now, to get their manicured gi online and have an acai bowl sent to them through DoorDash and talk about how people like how Gracie are bad for the sport and blah, blah, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, where was you at when dudes was coming through the door trying to slam Dave? You weren't around. And now you get to sit in your manicured gi and tell me how, how it's bad for the sport or this guy's bad for the sport. Bro, they were fighting in the street before you could even say the word Vale Tudo. They were fighting in the street.
So it's kind of, it's kind of what was kind of...
And there's people who come from that ground floor, like, they don't get their due. And that takes a certain amount of toughness that everybody now in the manicured gi and the acai bowl, like, that's the benefit that we get. Because he fought in 85 in Sao Paulo. Somebody will never know who outweighed him by 30 pounds. We now get to have the acai bowl and the manicured gi.
I think that's where, like, moving slightly to the side, lineage is really important, because if you come from a kind of direct line, you've heard these experiences, you've heard these stories, and therefore you're going to provide your students as closer experience as you can to that. So, like in this environment, it's a lovely academy.
It's a great academy.
Everyone's
Are you seeing this? That's crazy, right?
If I do say myself, everyone's safe.
Right.
We're going to train hard though.
Yeah.
I'm going to push the students. Like last week, there were a few people like looking at me like, stop shouting at me. Like, I don't need to. I'm like, stop looking at the clock. Let's train harder. Let's train harder. We've got to give them that realistic jiu-jitsu experience and not a diluted version because we can. Does that make sense?
Or it was as well, the end of class when we found like a couple of people hadn't washed their gis, right? And it's...
oh, man, I lost it. I lost it for the first time.
Come on, man. You gotta wash your gi, bro. Don't be that guy.
I lost it.
I think it's the mindset shift between, going to a regular gym and a martial arts academy, right? Yeah, you get all the benefits. That was like surprising for me. Like, I'd never thought, like, I've been doing martial arts since I was 5 years old. I never thought about someone who's not done that, doesn't have a community of people that they kind of just like hang with and train with.
Good point.
But on the other hand of that, they don't understand that this is a place where we're in the pursuit of a higher goal, and the values that we're trying to get don't just come through just showing up. There's there's the things like there's the basic principles of discipline, integrity, and things, and then we show those things through the simple actions of is it cleaning the mat after every session? Is it washing your gear? Is it keeping your nails short? Is it, for me, folding my gi perfectly after every fucking session?
Right.
Right. All these kind of little things that don't seem to matter.
Standards, right?
Yeah.
Personal standards.
That's deep.
And
No,
these cross over to every aspect of your life. That's what we're doing. And it comes back to the point I always say, we're not teaching jiu-jitsu. Well, we are, but we're developing people. We're
Totally.
developing people.
The tool
using
is jiu-jitsu.
tool is jiu-jitsu. Exactly that. And so there's more to it than just showing up. You've got to show it with the right mindset. You've got to show it with the right purpose. You've got to put it on, and then you've got to take it off again. And you've got to do all your hygiene. You've got to get ready, prepare. This is all about the whole thing. And that's why potentially it gets under your skin, because where else do we get to do that? Like where else does it
are
take
you
over?
held that accountable for your actions?
Yes.
Right? You're totally held accountable. Like if I reach out like this, I've totally extended my arm. Right? When you hop over and I got a tap, like, wow, overextension. Right? Well, then what other ways do you overextend when you speak to people, when you are at work, and you know what I mean? And what other ways are you overextending yourself unnaturally? Right? And, you know, and like that whole thing, like you will start to break that kind of questioning down to yourself. You know what I mean? When you put yourself in bad positions on the mat, which ways do you put yourself in bad positions, you know, with your coworkers, you know, as you're in college, you know what I mean? And you can start to fix these things. You know
So
what I mean?
what's the advice you'd give to somebody then who to sustain a journey as long as yours in jiu-jitsu and still love it and still kind of come back, you know? Because what I've found with some of our members, and they won't mind me saying this, but I wasn't happy that their goal was to be a blue belt. You know, I think it's too short.
Such a short bar.
It's not enough. It's got to be longer. It's got to be at least the black belt, if not like just for life, just because, right? What do you think? What are the?
So here's a long cliff note. So after training at House for not quite a year, I have a background in journalism, and I got opportunity to interview Haleo, Royce, and Horian in Torrance.
Wow.
So, and I was so down, like I totally risked my job at the time. Like I had a job like at this place, and I was like, I can't. Took the flight down to LA, hey, came back. I'm better. I'm better. Needless to say, I got fired. But that's not the point. The point is, I got to interview Haleo. Right? Because I knew it was going to be historic. I was like, you know, do you want to keep the job or do you want to meet a legend? So I lost the job. But the point is, I went and I interviewed Haleo, Royce, and Horian. Hiron was a green belt at the time who was a translator for me when I spoke to
Just
him.
a kid.
Right? And Haleo showed me some techniques like standing, like wrist grab escape, stuff like that, with details about the elbow, stuff like that. You know what I mean? He still put the gi on, still would get on the mat. You know what I mean? He wasn't straight sparring, but he could absolutely choke you, and you know what I mean, and do Americanas and other stuff with perfection. And I remember after having been with Halv, you know, being around Haleo and being like I think he had just turned 86 at that time. Like it was just after his 86th birthday. And I was like, yo, I want to do this at 86, right? So my advice is, you know, and I've known some savages, man, like, you know, BJ got his black belt in like what, 4 years, 3.5 years.
Awesome.
I've known a lot of dudes, like he kind of set the bar for that, like you can get a black belt fast kind of a thing. Truthfully, I should have had my black belt about 10 years ago, at least. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm in and out. And while I have some regrets about that, the regret that I don't have is that I never fully left. You know what I mean? I never fully left.
Never quit yet.
There were times when jiu-jitsu was kind of out. Sometimes I'd be at home just trying to run drills by myself. Sometimes some neighbor wants to learn a bit of jiu-jitsu, so I'll run them through fundamentals, whatever. And so, you know, but it's about staying fundamentally healthy. Jiu-jitsu keeps you fundamentally healthy. A lot of the times when I was most unhealthy is when I left jiu-jitsu, when I strayed too far and all of a sudden I gained all this weight and You're like, what? You know, I'm away from jiu-jitsu. I think that pair some type of something that's going to keep your joints healthy, like yoga and stuff like that, with your jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Or Pilates. Have a way, because like you need to rest, recuperate, and come back. right? I think one of the reasons people quit is because they get ground up in the mat and they don't know how to let themselves heal. And they think that maybe they're not good enough or maybe they're not tough enough. So then they just quit and go, oh, well, I must suck, so I'm out, And it's like, no, this is a warrior's path. It's rowdy, it's tough. Take some time, come back. You know what I mean? Or modify your training to X degree or whatever.
That's the classic blue belt mistake, isn't it? And that's why I think that goal is so worrying, concerning for me, because I know I'll present you with that blue belt on Saturday. Monday you'll come and get tapped by a white belt 3-stripe guy who you were owning last week when you had no pressure as a 4-stripe white belt, and then you go in, oh no, I've regressed. You haven't regressed. It's 2 days later.
Yeah.
But you, in your mind, you now question yourself because the pressure of the blue belt weighs heavy on you, right? Or the purple belt, or the black belt.
Yeah, every time you get a belt, there's a level of expectation, and there, when I was a white belt for a long time because I was in and out. Like I said, there was some inconsistency, and sometimes people weren't sure what was up with me, which was fair, right? I'm not right. But when I came to train, and when it was time to compete, I put it on the line. And truth be told, I didn't care. I either lose on points or I win by submission. Rarely I lost by submission. You know what I mean? Because I didn't care about points. I came to tap you out. So if you beat me on points, I was completely at peace with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You didn't lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was completely at peace with that. And if you caught me, I was at peace with that. And if I caught you, I was at peace with that because I came for the battle. That's what I came for. And that's where I learned myself. You know what I'm saying? And, I think that, if you want to stay in jiu-jitsu, just stay. You're always going to be welcome. You'll change. Your perspective on the world will change. Your fitness level will change.
Has your jiu-jitsu changed?
Yeah, my jiu-jitsu changed after I got an injury. Right. So I was trying to sweep this fat dude, and then I failed at the sweep, and then the fat dude fell on my leg, so it kind of messed me up, and then it messed up my left leg a little bit. So
read our blog about injuries, because weight falling on us is the catastrophic injury, right?
And I mean, and luckily it was just a straight accident. You know what I mean? It was a failed sweep, and he fell. I didn't do anything majorly wrong. He didn't do anything. He was just trying to stay up, and he fell. No big deal. But what it's made me do is it's changed how I attack, because now I actually don't like the mount as much anymore. I don't like the mount. So I'm finding new ways to attack, not because of any other reason than I have to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I enjoy how that growth is. Just like Gordo, the guy that kind of created the half guard game, he was hit by a car, was in a car accident, messed him up, and that's how he started doing the half guard. And that built into this whole thing. If you look up half guard sweeps, you see all this stuff. It all starts from Gordo trying to adapt off of that.
Yep.
Right? So then I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to adapt? Am I going to do more back taking? Am I going to finish people from the side? Am I going to attack from knee on stomach? Right? And then you kind of start reevaluating your game, and jiu-jitsu becomes new again. You know what I mean? You have to let the game become new. And you also have to understand that the value of who your jiu-jitsu is, of who you are, is not where your jiu-jitsu is at today. It's not where your jiu-jitsu is at today. You have to keep coming back. And if you get tapped 100 times today, it's still not a definition of who you are. You're still you. Whatever belt you are, you're still that. It doesn't matter, man.
It's profound stuff, man.
And so I interviewed Helio. I saw that he was doing it forever. And my whole thing is I just still want to be doing it. My goal is to live to be as old as him and still be able to get on the mat, put on a gi, enjoy myself, share some things, and so that's why I'm grateful, like I said, to just be here, to see you guys, last week, to hang out with you guys today. It means a lot to me, and I wouldn't have done that if Half wouldn't have let me train, right? I wouldn't have done that if Charles didn't let me into his school. I wouldn't have done that if Gumby, because I was done with jiu-jitsu and I was hanging out with Gumby and he was like, we're going to a Public Enemy concert and we're having dinner before the show. And he was like, so are you done training? And I was like, I don't know, man. It's been a while. It was like 2 or 3 years. He was like, dude, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I just really want to be a legit purple belt, like a purple belt who's like legit, And he was like, well, I'm going to start a school. If you want to come, you can train with me. And that's what happened, right? And then you get to purple and you're like, if I stayed a little longer, I could get to brown, right? And then you get to brown and then you're like, with a little more, I might be able to make it to black. And so, there's a book called Musashi, not the Book of Five Rings. It's called Musashi by a guy named Ichi Yoshikawa.
Oh, the full 57 hour one,
Audible,
or 1,000 pages. Yeah, I've gone through that. Recently.
So that book is an amazing book. But one of the things that happens in one of his battles is the guy writes. He said Musashi was in the middle of a sword fight, and he kept telling himself a little more, and then the author says, a little more is the difference between the victor and the vanquished. Man, like I got goosebumps right now. A little more is the difference between the victor and the vanquished. And if you that's an easy thing to read, but to find a little more in yourself, to give a little more, when you are absolutely getting ready to like vomit, pass out, or get something broken, and you find the way out, you think your way through that. Man, that is priceless. That is priceless. And you can take that into so many other places in your life, and so.
Do you remember that conversation we had in Harrogate when were you a white belt then?
Would have been, yeah.
And we were training, I think it was a black belt. Was I teaching that class? Maybe teaching that class? And I said to you, didn't I? I said, listen, man, you tap in too early. Mm-hmm. You tap in too early. Not to say don't tap, but there's a little bit more of yourself in there to fight this position. And you might get out. You might unlock the key to getting out. Remember that?
Mm-hmm, I do.
And T's like so much harder to tap down.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And that's where we want him to be. Yeah, particularly from the back. Why? Because I take you back a lot, right? Because that's what I like to do.
Right.
But then now I can't strangle him. Now he gets out too much. So we have to evolve. But that little thing, there's always that little bit more.
Man.
There's always a little bit, we said it on the last podcast. I'm boring, right? I've only got a few stories. But pain sets in at 40% of max effort. When we understand this, when we know that actually when we're starting to feel uncomfortable, there's a way to go.
There's a way bigger
There's always
threshold. Yeah.
Unless you're getting strangled.
Yeah.
You wait too long.
You got 3
right,
or 4 seconds.
You know what I'm saying?
As we found out on one of the technique videos.
Have you seen that?
For sure, yeah.
There's an outtake where I'm teaching the bow and arrow choke and I look down and he's fast asleep.
He's gone. And it's funny, but that's almost the trademark of a good choke. That's what Horian told me years ago. He said, a real choke, when you feel it, the lights go out. It's not like this is like, you know what I mean? And I remember the first time I got put out was at Half Gracie's. Kurt was coaching me and this other dude, and the guy hit a north-south choke from knee on stomach. And I saw him walk above me and I was like, hold on, I think I can figure this out. And then the next thing I knew, Kurt's like, bro. And I'm like, he's like, you went out, bro. It worked, huh? I was like, yeah, it worked. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. When you do go, it's for me anyway, it's those old TVs, black and white TVs, that you turn off and go.
Exactly, to that fine point, and then just nothing.
And then it's just gone. But it's quite nice.
It is.
I like it. No, I don't look for it, but I like it. I like that feeling. But it's weird because you feel like you're out for a long time, but you're out for a number of seconds.
Totally.
And everyone always says, how long was I out for?
Yeah.
I was out for a long time. Not 3 seconds. Man.
Yeah, no. Exactly. And so, jiu-jitsu and the longevity, the friendships that I've made, the experiences, the traveling that I've done, even this moment, right, is born from the day that I decided to walk into Half Gracie's, right? The day I decided to go to Charles. The day that I decided to not quit and go to Heroes, right? And all the things that have come from that, that's led me to meditation, to better eating, right? It's not even just jiu-jitsu itself. Jiu-jitsu is connected to all these other things and all these amazing people, and so, it's a good thing to trust yourself, trust your instructor, and trust the process.
Is jiu-jitsu wrapped up in a big part of your identity of who you see yourself as?
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's weird, right? How we have different filters, right? Different filters of race, different filters of faith. I'm Muslim, right? I'm a Sunni Muslim.
Were you always a Muslim? Do you want me asking?
I converted to Islam in my early, like right before I turned 21.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
right before I turned 21. And, so like at any given moment, like there's kind of like this roulette wheel of filtering, right? Like, am I seeing this through the lens of I'm also like an avid chess lover, right? And like historian. So like, am I looking at this as a jiu-jitsu player, as a Muslim, as a black man, as someone who meditates, right? As a Stoic philosophy guy, like who's looking at this, right? And then depending on the situation, right? It's like the black guy, the Muslim, the jiu-jitsu guy, like, you know what I mean? But to be able to shift through them is a beautiful thing.
Sure.
And I don't know how different, I can imagine how different I would be if the jiu-jitsu component wasn't there. You know what I mean? I think I would be very different.
There's something missing there, perhaps, right?
Yeah, and it's like I'm so much more informed about the humanity of other people because of jiu-jitsu. I'm so much more informed about the inherent role of mercy in this martial art. Now, this is where like I'm not talking about, oh, my style is better than your style. I'll tell you something. This is a true story. So many years ago in the Bay Area, there was a guy who graduated from college. He got into a fender bender like a few days after he got back. He got out, he punched the guy and he broke his neck and that guy died. So the guy went from college like straight to jail. Right now, what is the lesson in that? That there is not an inherent amount of mercy in a punch, right? I know he didn't intend to break that guy's neck. He was just upset in traffic, socked the guy, right? And every guy wishes that they had that one punch, but most of us don't, thankfully, right? But this guy did, right? But jiu-jitsu allows us to be in a very serious situation and leave everyone as unharmed as we can, if we choose. There's an inherent mercy in jiu-jitsu and in the grappling arts, in wrestling, in judo, in all the submission arts, that doesn't come from punching and kicking. And that allows us to help the situation better. Because we all, like when we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're thinking about that guy in the alley, we're thinking about some dude attacking our mom or our girl or whatever. But like really, you're probably just gonna have to get your drunk uncle out of the wedding. That's what's really gonna have to happen, right? You gotta get the drunk uncle, right? Do you wanna break your uncle's neck when you steal on him like hella hard to the jaw? Or you just gonna be like, Unc, man, you're not gonna leave? Okay, then you tackle him, right? You tell me when you're done. Like that was my deal. One of my favorite stories as a teacher, because I used to teach at Zaytuna College before COVID in Berkeley. And I had another school in Fremont, and I had this one girl, one of my first women students, and she said, you know, sometimes my sister's crazy, we be getting into fights and stuff, and I said, okay, look, next time it gets out of hand, here's what I want you to do. Tackle her, clinch, and just stay in the mount. I don't want you to hit her. I don't want you to let yourself get hit. Keep her there, and tell her you do not want to fight her. And she goes, well, she's just going to get pissed off. I said, she's not. She's going to get tired, and then it'll be over. And then like 2 weeks later, she goes, guess what? And I was like, what? She was talking crazy to my mom. I was like, hey, leave mom alone. Blah, blah, blah. I said, what'd you do? She goes, I tackled her. I was like, so then what happened? She goes, I got the mount. And then what'd you do? She goes, I maintained the mount. And I said, what'd you say to her? She goes, I told her, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you. And then what happened? She's like, get off me. I'm going to kill you. Blah, blah, blah. And then what happened? She went, I'm tired. And then I said, well, then what happened? She was like, I'm going to let you up. Is everything cool? She was like, yeah, it's cool. And they just got up and they had a conversation. That could have ended in something normally between people that are hitting people and trying to hit people with bottles and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Totally different. But it ended cool. And she was so grateful, not only that it worked, but that she didn't have to hurt her sister.
Yeah. Not only that, I think to hit anybody with anything, your fist, a bottle, whatever,
Right.
You're committing an act of violence. And unless you're a violent person, and most of us aren't,
Right.
because most people who are violent have been brought up around violence, and
Yep.
therefore it's been normalized.
Yep.
So if we're not around that, and most of us aren't, we won't have that answer. We
Yeah.
won't have, when someone breaks into the house, we'll freeze. Because we won't have the fight mentality. We don't understand it. But jiu-jitsu gives everyone an opportunity
Right.
to be violent in a non-violent way.
No, totally. You know,
Right.
the inherent mercy in jiu-jitsu makes it supremely different. It makes it something that, I mean, like, I've taught kids. My first real student was a kid who, he was probably on the autistic spectrum, doesn't really talk very much, definitely was not athletic. And I brought him to a tournament after 3 months, okay? 3 months of jiu-jitsu. And I put him in the US Open. And
Just a small tournament.
I put him in the US Open after 3 months, right? And his dad is like, right? Especially once we got there. Because I'm like, US Open, it's going to be cool. It's in Santa Cruz. We get there,
Huge.
kids there, and we were fighting in the morning. His match was in the morning. So, you know, it's kind of empty, but it's big. He sees the mats. He's like, ugh. So then I'm like, so he comes over to me, and I teach chess and jiu-jitsu as a unified thing.
Wow.
So I teach chess and jiu-jitsu. So the way that I roll is chess is jiu-jitsu for the mind and jiu-jitsu is chess for the body. So that's my method of teaching. And I pull him over to me because I can see he's starting to get nervous. I said, hey, dude, look at me. I said, you know who Gary Kasparov is? He's a chess grandmaster. He's like, yeah, I know Gary Kasparov. I said, here's what I'm gonna tell you. He said, never let your opponent show you what they're capable of, right? I said, when the ref says go, right? Like, if you watch the jiu-jitsu, you're gonna be somebody's highlight footage or something. You have to be the jiu-jitsu in this moment. He's giving you permission. When the ref goes like that, he's giving you permission to do what you were trained to do. You understand me? He was like, yeah. I said, so as soon as he says go, I want you to put him down and then do what you were taught. You can listen to me, but do what I taught you. He said, okay. Bro.
Straight in.
He said, go. Dude, my boy dropped, shot, mount, turned him over, got twisting arm control, turned him over, took his back, and he squeezed with like his whole soul. Like I didn't think he was gonna let go. He was like, ugh! And then the kid's like tapping me, I was like, yo, and then like he kind of like, you know how you come out of the zone?
Yep.
And he got silver that day. He lost his next match, but he got silver. And what that did for him, like the rest of his life, bro, the way that his father looked at him. I said, can you believe your son is a silver medalist, the US Open? He was like, I don't even know what's going on, man. I can't even believe this. Wow. You know, and these are the kinds of things that as instructors, we get to help you have these moments.
It's a privilege, isn't it? Yeah, it's a privilege to be
know,
able to see people develop.
Yeah, man. But thank you guys for, you know, inviting me in. I appreciate you.
I've got a few more questions.
Well, what's up? Let's keep going. I thought I was talking too much. I was like,
Man, I
man.
just heard the phone ring, man. We've got people trying to book free travel. We're going to keep going.
I was like, man, am I boring? I'm breaking down too much stuff. I'm talking too long.
No, it's great, man.
You know, you say you got your jiu-jitsu and the chess mix.
Yeah.
Do you find like the Islam, and I know you're big into hip hop, do those four things ever intermix? Is there a crossover in philosophy?
The short answer is yes, I am a weirdo. And so what that means is, you know who Joseph Campbell is?
I do, the Hero's Journey guy.
Yeah. Joseph Campbell is this guy who taught this stuff called the perennial philosophies. And basically I learned about him right before I converted to Islam. And what he was showing was that, you know, there are things that come out of Islam and Christianity and Hinduism and, you know, Buddhism that they agree here. You know, they agree there. You know, these perennial philosophies. And I've always been such a big student of his work, and his work guided me as a writer and guided me kind of like in my personal philosophies. And so even though I'm Muslim, I really appreciate and have love for everybody, you know, Muslim or not, whatever, black or not, I don't care, American or not. Like I just have that kind of universal respect for all humanity. But his work taught me to see those patterns. You know what I mean? And so for me, Half would be showing a move, I wouldn't get it. And I like chess. I'm not a chess master, nothing near, but I like chess. And so I started like, I'd be like, you go here, then you go here, then you slide up, put your leg over, arm lock. And I was like, oh, that's like chess. Like, okay, cool. Or then he's gonna go, and then you go there, okay, cool, right? So that's how it started for me, right? And then like Islam and hip hop, they merge just because when hip hop comes out of the tail end of the civil rights era. So a lot of the early people that were rapping usually were kind of connected to Islam, or they were fans of Malcolm X or something like that. You know what I mean? And so I've written a lot about
Like Gil Scott Heron?
yeah, Gil Scott Heron, exactly. The what do they call them? The Watts Prophets, the Last Poets, spoken word type stuff. You know what I mean? And so I've written a lot about that, and I've spoken about that stuff at different colleges and stuff like that. But for the chess and jiu-jitsu stuff, which I've spent a lot of time like really cultivating, it's like understanding how a lot of these concepts from the board can really be applied on the mat, you know, especially as it relates to like 2 and 3 prong multiple attacks. There's a thing in chess called Zugzwang, and Zugzwang is like when you have, man, like I'm gonna start.
Go for it.
I'm trying not to like get too weird on you guys. I'm gonna see what thing am I gonna.
We'll ask you to leave, but don't worry.
But like so you know, there are certain situations where you can create a position where your opponent only has 2 bad options,
Nice.
right? And
Do
so,
that in jiu-jitsu all the time, don't we?
yeah, exactly. You see what I'm saying? And so
Do you want
like,
to give me the mount or to the back? Which one do you want?
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And so that's what it's gonna be, right?
That's Zugzwang?
Zugzwang. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so there's all kinds of different things that come out of chess that reflected for me an aspect of jiu-jitsu. And so I've always kind of brought that in. Now, you know, my instructor Gumby, like, you know, he's still like jiu-jitsu is still jiu-jitsu though. You know, and he's right. You know what I mean? There's a limit to how much you can, you know, how much is, you know, martial arts and hip hop merge? Awesome, but not everywhere. How much is chess and jiu-jitsu merge? Awesome, but not everywhere. Sometimes strictly chess is chess and sometimes jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. But where those things can cross-pollinate, for the student to be able to understand what they need to be doing, right, is a big deal. So like out of Heroes, like the main mantra is safety, position, and finish. That's what Gumby teaches.
Nice.
First you get yourself safe, you improve your position, then you finish the fight, right? You can do that on a chessboard. Get your king safe, you know, stomp out the other guy's army, take his king, right? And if you remember those things, and if you remember on the mat, right, if you're trying to tap a guy but you don't have the position, you're gonna get caught. And then it's easy to understand, well, why, you know, how many times, especially at white and blue belt, you're like, why did I mess up? Well, were you being safe? Were you trying to improve a position where you need to be escaping a choke? Maybe you need to just get out of the choke. Stop trying to, you know, armbar a guy that you can't because you can't breathe. And so these types of things. And so, you know, I think that, you know, this integration of chess and jiu-jitsu is something that I'm going to expand even more than I've been doing.
I've got 3 more questions.
No
I'll
problem.
finish.
I'm chilling.
First one is how did the jiu-jitsu haikus come about? Because that is a legendary idea. I love it.
So
I've not heard of this yet, so my apologies.
So do you know what a haiku is?
No.
So a haiku is a Japanese poem of 3 lines, okay? And they're made off of syllables, right? So the first line is 5 syllables, not words, but syllables.
Yep.
The second is 7, and the last are 5. Right. And so on my podcast, Bishop Chronicles, available on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
Link in the description.
Link in the description. Oftentimes I do a haiku, and many of those haikus are around jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
So I don't know, man. I was teaching a class, and the guy next to my class was a poetry teacher, and he had just taught haikus. And I always thought like haikus were cool, but I didn't really understand them. So I was like, hey man, so how does this thing work? He was like, it's 5 and then 7 and then 5. I was like, that's it? And he was like, yeah, I mean, that's the basics. There's more, but that's the basics. I became addicted. Like I got into the car and I was like, no, that's 7, 9. Okay, hold on. You know, and I became like, so a lot of times on my podcast, I do haikus that deal with jiu-jitsu. And haikus do not have to rhyme, but sometimes they do. But often they don't. So I do these different haikus, and my producer, he puts all these crazy sounds and stuff in the background. And that's actually turned into a book I have coming out.
Wow,
I have a whole
cool.
book of haikus that are mixed between just what I just call standard haikus. Then I created some haikus that are just about jujitsu. I have some that are just about like Stoic philosophy. It's weird.
Nice.
The one on
2 questions left because I'm dying for the bathroom, man. Like,
He's like,
you go, man. You
no,
go.
it's good. Don't worry.
He's like,
I'm
hold
sticking
on,
around. I don't want to miss it. Man. I'm sticking around.
I can't remember the middle line, but I think it was one in the Eddie Bravo. It was like solo samurai, something, and it's like I live what I train. I was like, oh, that's
yeah.
that's kind of
Well, so one of the deals with haikus are that they're supposed to represent the present moment, right? So a lot of times, like I have a path behind my house that I'll jog, and I'm so lucky because it's super naturey. When you get to the top of the hill, one side is a lake, and then the other side you can see the whole Pacific Ocean. It's
Wow.
super California. You know what I mean? Right? Very 90210-ish.
No, I'm
you
not
know?
to go to the bathroom, man. I can't wait.
go.
I sense we'll be here for some time.
So you know, I have my phone in my pocket, and I'll just be like in this kind of like zoned out space, and I'll be like, and then I just go back, right? But I may not have the whole thing. I might just have the 7th.
Right.
You know, I may
You
have
got-
the
yeah,
7
it's-
one.
it's the
but
idea
then
of
how
it.
do I? So then I go back and I think about what I was feeling, and I'll just kind of add it. You know what I mean? And then like I'll just tell Mike, I'll be like, yo, I need some flutes, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like I was like, give me some like Japanese harp. And I was like, I was like, oh, okay, we're going in.
So, you know, it's fun. And I mean, like, but even that is an expression of my jujitsu, meaning like if I wouldn't have started jujitsu, I mean, I had read The Art of War and I'd read The Art of Peace, but I didn't really, you know what I mean? Like, like getting into jujitsu made me study Japanese culture on a deeper level. It made me look at Brazilian culture on a deeper level.
Well, I
It made
think-
me have
yeah.
appreciation for stuff like that, you know?
I think when you read anything like that, that's got as deep as that, when you read it and then you go back, it'll mean something to you. And then when you read it 5 years later, 10 years later, it means something completely different, you know? Because
Totally real.
it's a reflection of your own life experiences, right?
Yeah, you know, and I mean, and that's the thing is like, I think when it comes to jujitsu, one thing I'll say is like, this is one thing that I started telling my students in the last few years, right? Like, the crazy thing about jujitsu is lineage means something major, right? So, you know, I've been in situations where you go to a school and they know you come from Ralph Gracie's, and it's actually not the best thing to be saying, right? Like, oh, Ralph, and they're gonna try to wreck you. I mean, that's the generation that I came from.
I had that in Canada, man. When I went over there as a Victor Estima purple belt, he promoted me over the phone as I was flying out.
yeah.
It was like, you're going away for a year, you can't go as a blue belt. You've got to be as a purple
Right.
belt because he wanted me to have the pressure.
Gangster.
But as soon as you walk into the Henzo school that I trained at, they were like, who'd you train under? I'm like, Victor Estima. They're like, oh, okay. Like, this guy's going to be a legit purple belt. And they're bringing all the best guys out. They're like,
Yeah, they're like,
he's a Victor purple belt, come
They're
out.
bringing
Come on
Click
out,
team.
guys. Bring them out. You know what I'm
They
saying?
did. No, they did, man.
And I've felt that before. Like, I've been in a school where like I came in with the best intentions, but you know what I'm saying? Like, your lineage matters, right? And you're gonna fight. So like in that day, like I had a really crazy situation because you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, jiu-jitsu is fun. It is a sport. There's brotherhood and all that. But you may find yourself in a situation where someone's not playing and you really might get your arm broke or you really might get tapped out or worse. And in those moments, like paying attention in class really does mean everything because he's not going to be there and he's not going to be there to be like, tuck your chin down. Train. So I'm in a situation, I got nobody in my corner, and I swear to God, the only thing I'm asking myself is like, what would Ralph tell me? And so I go out there, and in the back of my head, like every talk about how Ralph would like yell at you and stuff, that's all Ralph was doing in the back of my, don't let him get your wrist, don't, blah, 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 pass, go, push. And then I tapped the dude, and I stood up, and I was not okay. I was having a real PTSD like kind of moment after the match, you know what I'm saying? But like, what I'll tell you is, what I learned from Ralph and Charles and Gumby is that, yes, that is my lineage, right? But my jiu-jitsu is my jiu-jitsu, right? Like, I know as much as Victor gave you, there are paths, there are ways that you do it, your jiu-jitsu, that are just
Very
particular
different.
to you. And it's not like a defiance of your instructor. It's just things you were good at, things you have insight on,
I would say very different, actually. I think what he's taught me, obviously jiu-jitsu, but I came up the majority of my time through a guy called Tom Harris, who's got a very different game. Close guard, heavy pressure.
Right.
Victor's like close guard, open guards, finish you from the bottom triangles, right?
Right.
Tom was like close guard, mount, pressure, smash, and smash again.
Right.
And that's how I do my jiu-jitsu, man, with a little bit of the Victor thing going on.
Right.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing. We develop our own style,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That matches our body type. My jiu-jitsu can't be the same as yours. You're
Exactly.
like fucking miles taller than me. So.
Exactly. And that's what I realized when I went from Hal to Charles, right? Because Charles is taller. And I was like, you open your guard? That's blasphemy coming out of Hal.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, why do all that struggle? Just boop. And then, get the hooks you want, and I was like, whoa, and it worked, right? So now I have this fusion of, just the grueling, merciless South Gracie style with, an open flow from Charles, plus other stuff you pick up along the way. And so, it may feel like in the beginning that you don't understand what your instructor's giving you. It may feel like in the beginning that you can't get it, but you have your own strengths. You have your own timing. You have your own understanding. Somebody may be better at arm bars. You may be better at chokes. And you get to mix and match and give yourself time. Cultivate your strengths while you work on your weaknesses. You know what I mean? And your lineage always matters. But as you evolve, I tell them I don't want you to tell my students, I don't want you to do jiu-jitsu like me. I want you to let me teach you jiu-jitsu and then you make it your own.
That's why, my jiu-jitsu is based, and I practice, the majority of things I teach are concepts and philosophies.
Yeah.
A bit like the chess thing.
Yeah.
Show them the why, then you figure out the how bit yourself. And that's why experiential learning is massive in our academy. It's like, I'm going to put you in the bottom of the mount for a long time. Figure your way out. Figure it out. You know the principles. You know that you can't allow your arms to, come
right. So you're tight, right? We're going to be tight. Right?
You know you can't allow them to get settled. You know you can't accept one hand in the collar. So all these principles, like as long as you figure that out, then but if I bridge whilst the hand's in, and I've got it's an upper escape.
Yeah.
Don't need to call it anything. You just figured it out.
Yeah.
What you're talking about there actually leads me on to what I was going to ask lastly.
Yeah.
Last week on the podcast, we discussed a Galileo quote, which was, all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. He's got another quote that kind of leads nicely to this. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself.
It's so real, right?
That's it.
That's so real. And is deep, man. Oh, real quick, shout out to Aeon Jiu-Jitsu in London, because on the friendship thing, they've been letting me, hang out and meet some of their dudes. And so
who are these guys? Who's he?
Eamon Madden and Aeon Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
And I think Streatham. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Streatham, yeah.
I'm American, I'd be messing it all up.
Some call it St. Wreatham if you're posh. It's not, it's Streatham.
But yeah, no, I mean, like Eamon and his crew are really cool people, and this international thing, it never stops.
That thing to me, that quote there, I think if as an instructor so focused on teaching you the thing, because they're not teaching just one person in class.
Right.
We're teaching 20, 30 people, all with a different life experience, body type, fitness level, mobility level, want from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's teach people the kind of why. And that's why sometimes I can waffle on in classes, man.
Right.
It's like, because I could talk for an hour about this one grip and why. Why we're gripping it there and why it's that way, not this way.
Yeah.
And why, this part of the fabric not there. We could talk forever about that. People need to understand why. And a good teacher, I think, tells us that. And I think that quote there, like, don't teach them that, teach them the broader concept, man.
Yeah, it's definitely the broader concept, man.
And within yourself, you find it, right?
I think, to what Galileo was saying and what you were saying, a huge part of this is really about, you come, you see your instructor, he's killing everybody, he understands all this stuff, and you think that everything that he has is miles away, but the instructor in him is in you. And he's in search of that instructor in you, right? So if you quit at blue belt, if you walk away right before you were going to go purple, like you'll never find the instructor in you. And everything that you admire in him is in you. And he's going to help you find that if you keep showing up.
Lastly then, Adisa, what does it mean for you to be a martial artist? What does that mean?
That's a great question. That's super deep. Now I'm scared. I think being a martial artist means being able. When I think about a martial artist that I really respect, and it's going to sound corny, but I mean it, you know, my instructor, you know, Alan Gumby Marcus, you know, of all the things that I could tell you, I mean, they call him Gumby because he's crazy flexible, right? And he's really incredibly smart and adaptive. Ralph Gracie gave him the black belt off of his waist and put it on Gumby. And that's never happened to another student in his lineage that I'm aware of, okay? Gumby's character is equal to his technique. Make sure that your character grows with your technique, and that's what will make you a martial artist. Because you could literally teach an ape jiu-jitsu with sign language. You wouldn't be a martial artist. You know, a martial artist has a certain kind of character. So as much as you train, look into philosophy, look into Stoicism, look into Buddhism, look into Sufism, look into, you know, anything that the Greeks gave, anything that the people of India gave, look into Native American stuff. Build your character up so that it matches your technique. Because if you don't have that, you're just a fighter. And the world has tons of fighters, but the world doesn't have a lot of martial artists.
Adisa, thanks so much for joining us,
I
man.
appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for
Thanks, bro.
having me. I'm juiced.
Looking
I'm in
forward-
Leeds, y'all. I'm chilling. I love it.
Looking forward to getting some time on the mat with you. And,
Yeah.
you know, you're here for a couple of weeks at least, right?
Yeah, a couple weeks, and then back in London for a little bit, and then back to the old US of A.
You'll be back though. We'll see you again.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
this is another home for you now, right?
Dude, you know what
Show
I'm
them
saying?
out.
Like this is about to be the spot.
Yep, so members, you'll probably get to meet Adisa at some point.
Yep.
But to everyone else, until next time.
Thank you so much. This was great, man. I really appreciate you.